So your steps would be to run a renewal list, determine how far out in advance you want to call those clients. And yes, you're calling every client. It sounds overwhelming right now, but it won't be if you have a strategy. And that's what we're talking about, strategies. Hey everybody, Therese with Agency Performance Partners here live with the Diva, Steven. And we are going to talk today about insurance remarketing. Now, do you have a strategy? You should, if you don't.
I do.
Of course you do. You are the excellent diva, and we know that you have a strategy, but we need to influence everybody out there to have a strategy. If you don't have one, now's the time to get one. Strategies. Do you wing it?
Ooh, you never wing it.
Do we apologize?
Never apologize.
And why aren't we apologizing?
Because we didn't make the rate.
We didn't make the
I
rate.
mean, there's some customers I would love to make the rate for and be like, I don't like you, so boom, you're gonna pay triple.
For
But
sure.
we do not make the rate.
We do not make the rate. So let's look at some rate reasons for rate. You've got weather, you've got increase in car crashes, you have distracted driving, which is huge with these cell phones these days, natural disasters, and then what client activity do we have, Stephen?
Recent changes, like maybe they made a vehicle change or they added a young driver onto the policy. It could be for commercial, something like revenue or payroll increases. Claims can cause a change to your rate, unfortunately. Tickets or accidents and insurance scores, the states that still use those.
Do you have any accidents or violations? No. And then
Yes.
you go in and there's like three.
Oh, wait, I thought you were asking me. I was like, yes, I do. I'm open about it. I'm like, hey, I pay my rate. My policy went up $300 a month, but they didn't non-renew. So we're
Well, at
gold.
least you were honest, and that's the
Yes.
problem. A lot of people are honest, and we as insurance agents know that. Um, and exclusive agents, once upon a time, they didn't have anywhere else to write the business, and there's still some out there that don't have places to go to rewrite the business. So they have to consider what they can do to the current policy. So first, they need to review them for accuracy. Things like verify the vehicles, make sure that there's drivers. I know that our agency would have somebody call in and say, oh yeah, he hasn't been a driver on my policy for 3 years. Those are things that you need to check on when you're doing reviews. Usage with COVID, a lot of people aren't driving to and from work anymore. They need to be listed as pleasure because they work remotely. Coverages, home updates like plumbing, heating, electrical, and roof updates can reduce prices a great deal. And then we
Some
need
of
to
the
look for
other
discounts. What kind of discounts can we look for?
I was gonna say some of the other discounts we should look at is if we have a young driver, do they have a good student discount? Do they have a 3.5 or whatever the threshold is for the carrier? And make sure they keep those grades or there should be a consequence for the child. Just saying, I'm a firm believer. They need to be helping pay for the insurance because that buys in some responsibility. So keeping good grades or looking for a good student discount, usage based or telematics. I mean, people used to be afraid of everybody watching. Now we all have smartphones. We take them everywhere we go. Google sent me a message just the other day that was like, you visited 47 new places last month. Look at all the miles you traveled. And I was like, I was all across the US. And it's kind of creepy that Google now knows everywhere I went.
My 22-year-old actually saved a lot on his policy from telematics. He called me. He's like, "Mom, I saved this much money," and it was actually quite a bit.
My daughter, I think, saved almost 18% because as soon as it got installed, she started driving like a grandma and never stopped. She's like, I'm getting a discount. Watch me. And I was like, hold my energy drink. I hope I get 2%, right? Like I already know that it was questionable. Different safety courses. So whether it be workplace safety or safety, safe driver. And my favorite discount, the multi-policy discount. Bum, bum,
And if
bum.
they're not getting it, you need to find other policies that you can write for them to get it.
Well, one of the
For
things I like to
instance,
ask a client is, hey, I could probably save you about 10% if we bundle your home and your auto. Do you mind if I quote your home? And they're like, no. I'm like, cool. So you don't want a discount then?
You don't
And I
want to
shut my
save money.
mouth. And they're like, well, no, I want a discount. I'm like, cool. So then don't you think we should take a look at the house? And they're like,
Yes.
well, no. I'm like, great. So let's do a paid in full discount. And they're like, well, I don't want to pay in full. I'm like, so you've now just declined 13% in discount. So you really don't
Yes.
want to save money. And the client's like, no, I do. And I'm like, then let's get a quote and let's put you on EFT.
Right. So use a review as an opportunity to earn more business. Ask the questions. If you don't ask the questions, you're not going to know the answers. We don't know unless we ask. Build rapport. That's how you build rapport too. Remember, as an agent, we can't think with our own wallets. It's not our wallet, it's their wallet. They're the ones who have to pay for it. We may think it's expensive, but they may not. So let's let the client tell us their tale. We need to become problem solvers and option providers, not reducing costs, but option providers. Give them the options of the policies, not just trying to reduce costs. Well, sometimes when you do that, you actually find stuff to upsell because they don't have the right coverages, and you show them the value in having the better coverage, and you end up raising the premium and giving them better coverages.
Like if you ask about their hobbies and we find out they have expensive golf clubs that need to be scheduled into a policy, or firearms, jewelry, ask about trips and vacations. I mean, what do these people have that they're taking all over the countryside that may or may not be covered properly?
Right. So we're assuming what people can afford, and we're assuming what they have and they don't have. And we can't do that. We don't know the answers to that. So there's a couple steps we can take. And those steps are part of actually renewal calls, outbound renewal calls. And I know we don't want to do outbound renewal calls, but we can be reactive or we can be proactive. So let me talk about the steps and then we'll go through the pros and cons. So your steps would be to run a renewal list, determine how far out in advance you want to call those clients. And yes, you're calling every client. It sounds overwhelming right now, but it won't be if you have a strategy. And that's what we're talking about, strategies. Determine how you will distribute the calls, make a script for those calls, and make sure that your staff know that they can adjust that script to their needs. So if they think the script doesn't work, they're the ones who are using it. Have them adjust it to work for them. And hint, hint, we have checklists and scripts all over the place in our website. So check it out. Then you start your calls and then you meet with your staff to discuss, the pros and cons of the calls and how it worked. So you need, as an agency, to discover what should be the requirements for a remarket. Is it 2 or more policies? Is it a certain percentage of increase on the current policy? How much time do you spend remarketing? How many policies, how many did you do in the last 2 weeks? How many of them moved carriers? So sometimes, you have them move to different carriers, sometimes non-standard to standard, and that's kind of different. And how much premium did you reduce? Now, what happens when you rewrite a policy and you're saving them money? What happens to the agency revenue or premium, Stephen? It goes down.
No,
And I think if you were to realize that as an agency, we lose this money, but if that was your paycheck, how would you feel?
I would be sad. I don't want a smaller paycheck. And
Right.
on the
So,
management side, I think one of the things that's really important to talk to is be open to the team about this, right? Like we're always so afraid to give them numbers or share things with them. But if we explain that if we reshop 200 people and save them $200 a year each, that's $40,000. That's a whole position gone out of the agency. And
$40,000.
and our staff is normally such people pleasers. They're like, but I know, but Mrs. Jones called and she's eating cat food. Right? Is she really? We don't know. But we have to stop shopping out of our own pocket and have conversations with the client. The horrible thing that also happens, or we get in the horrible habit of, is they get one person to say yes because they did 40 quotes, and now they want to quote the entire book to save every person in the world money.
Well, and in an agency I was in, it was just easier to remarket, to shop them out and save them money and just keep moving. And then our agents started to bring us different documents that stated different rate impacts, what the rate impacts were, like the ones we described earlier. And when he did that, it wasn't like a script, but it was like him showing us or educating us as agents on the reason it increased to help us talk to the client about those increases. So it's always good to educate ourselves as agents to understand those increases and why. But then we have to educate the client about those increases. And sometimes the state increase is, huge, and their increase is only like 2 or 3%. So we also have to compare those increases and let them know that their increase was much lower than the actual state itself.
I was talking with an agency the other day that in their state there was a freeze on certain things, and I don't know exactly what it was, but that's now being lifted, and they're allowing the carriers to file for the rate they actually need. So they're seeing increases of 50 and 60%.
Wow.
Not just one carrier, but multiple carriers, or carriers are leaving the state altogether because they didn't get the rate they needed. So when we go try to reshop, the other thing I like to say is, what is the price currently versus what is the renewal,
Right.
right?
Right.
So we know that the price expires and we're never going to get that back. But so what is it renewing at? And is it reasonable? Is it in the marketplace for the area or for the risk?
Right.
And sometimes we have to have that tough love conversation with the client. But I
Yes.
would rather have those conversations with my top tier clients that I never talked to versus the person that cancels every 3 months and comes back to get a new ID card to get their plates back or their registration back or to file that they had insurance again, that wastes all my time. We have
Right.
to be very selective and really think through what makes sense for the agency.
Well, and that brings us to basically the pros and cons of being reactive. When we're reactive and we're just reacting to clients calling in, a pro to that, which is the only one I could find, maybe you can think of something else, was customers actually reached out to you. Woohoo, they reached out
They
to you.
called!
They called you because they could have been
Yay!
calling another agent and going shopping.
Absolutely.
So the pro to being reactive is they called you. The cons are you have no communication with the client prior to this conversation.
There's no relationship built.
Yes, no relationship, no building rapport. So you're trying to build it all of a sudden. Oh no, I got to try to fix this. You're caught off guard by the call and you need to wing it. Yikes. You need to review the account while you're talking to the client and can find surprises in it. And you kind of want to keep them on the phone because if you don't keep them on the phone, what are they doing?
Calling someone else.
Calling someone else. So try to keep them on the phone, but you're going to have to review the account with them on the phone, which can be tricky because there may be surprises. You have more chance of losing the business and the client is already upset. So,
Mhm.
Stephen, can you tell us the pros and cons of being proactive, which is what we want? This is our strategy. What are the pros and cons of being proactive?
We can beat the client to the punch, really. I mean, if we're calling out proactively ahead of a renewal, we get to guide the conversation. We can alert the
For sure.
client to what's happening and let them know we're on their side, and we're here to help them and guide them through the process.
Right,
So we're not rushing against the client calling in and having to get done right this minute.
right.
Um, Another pro is getting to know the clients and building rapport. What we should learn about our clients to earn renewal commission. That's one of the only
Yes.
industries where clients renew and we make money without a whole lot of work.
Right.
So is it not worth 15 minutes of our time to renew a good account?
It definitely is.
I think it is. And it helps us really get to know the client. And the better we build the relationship, the more likely they are to call us when they're unhappy or have a question about something versus just leaving and going somewhere else.
Right, right.
We can also be prepared for the call. We can review the account ahead of time, take a quick peek, and look and see what we should be talking about. Maybe they're missing an important coverage, or their limits might be a little bit low, or maybe the replacement cost on their home needs to be reevaluated.
Or maybe we
So we
discover a
can,
discount that's not there and we're not surprised. So we have a way to formulate it so it doesn't sound like the discount has been gone forever.
right? Another one is, what if the rate does go down? Should we call the client and be like, oh my God, guess what? I don't know why, I don't know how, but I think you're gonna love me.
Yeah, for
And let
sure.
the client know, toot our own horn. And I mean, really retaining the business and letting them know that we're working for them. Get them in a good mood and get them in a place where they understand what they have. I think the con is we're afraid to alert the client of a price change or a non-renewal. Because I know a lot of markets are withdrawing and a lot of policies are canceling right now too. So we need to be proactive and be like, hey, I just got notice your homeowner's policy is canceling because the carrier is no longer in the area. What that means is, and here's the steps I need to take to help secure you new coverage or help to try to find new coverage. Give me a couple days to work on this. I didn't want you to freak out when you got it on Saturday at 2 p.m. and I wasn't available till Monday afternoon.
Right. And you can schedule time with them so they know when you're going to call. So
Right.
put something on your schedule and on theirs. So, as people who have managed agencies before, it's important as an agency owner, a manager, that you understand the process, that you have your staff involved in building the process, but the staff have to be on board. They have to be on board. If you have negative Nelly that feels like she should not be calling out negative Eeyore, that call is not going to be successful because she's already in a bad mood. She doesn't want to do the call. She doesn't think they need to do these calls, and she's going to project that onto the client. And then where's the client going to be going? The other agency.
Away.
They're going to be
Bye.
shopping because they don't want to talk to Eeyore. They want to talk to Tigger. Woo, Tigger, get
Right.
excited. So if you have a bad day, don't do your calls that day. If you know that you have a bad day and you have a bad attitude, or your staff has a bad attitude, just say, hey, don't worry about the calls today. We'll do extra calls tomorrow to make up for it. But make sure you're in Tigger's smiley mood. You know, it does mean something when you smile and you call that client. They can hear your smile. So it's really important
Absolutely.
that your staff's on board, that everybody has a positive attitude, and that everybody's on board with these. And we know that change is hard. We knew doing these retention calls at the beginning seems scary, that these strategies for retention seem scary, but we have several agencies, many agencies that have gone through our retention remarketing strategy program and have been super successful. Their retention rates went up. So we have many programs at Agency Performance Partners that can help you. So any final thoughts, Stephen?
Just do it. Make the magic happen. Reach out to your clients, control the conversation, and build the relationship so they know who to talk to in the future.
Exactly. So check us out, agencyperformancepartners.com. Check out our blogs, our 3-minute videos. We've got stuff everywhere. We're here to help agencies and agent owners be successful in selling insurance and retaining insurance. So check us out. This is the blog on a strategy for remarketing. Thanks so much for listening, and take care, everybody.